Recording in progress.
We are now beginning the special council meeting of the Richmond City Council. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilmember Bana,
I'm here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Presente.
Councilmember Robinson,
Here.
Councilmember Wilson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Zepeda,
Here.
and Mayor Martinez.
Here.
Our next item is statement of conflict of interest. Are there any? Hearing none. Our next item is agenda review, and we have a request to continue item F2 to the May 6th meeting. Any other changes?
No other changes.
Okay. Our next item under new business is item F1, and this is to receive a presentation and provide direction to staff on the status of the capital improvement program, budget requests, new CIP requests, proposed citywide prioritization factors, and weighing system. And this item was continued from the April 22nd meeting, and it is for the public comment section is closed. So this item is for council deliberation and voting only.
Thank you. We have already had conversation on this item, and I believe that the next point of conversation was around which implementation plan, what prioritization plan we would use to consider CIP items in the future. So we have our current system, and we have one that has been given to us by the CIP department. So I see Councilmember Robinson.
So I wanted to give some feedback on the proposed prioritization. The one thing, actually, I got an opportunity to talk to a lot of folks at neighborhood council meetings and such in the meantime, and got back some really, I think, good feedback. One of them was really wanting to understand what you mean by equity. How are we defining that? Are we using an existing platform? Oh, there it goes. Sorry. Are we using an existing platform like Cal EnviroScreen or something like that to determine what we mean by equity, where it has quantitative factors that can, kind of go by neighborhood or by census tract to really understand what we mean by equity? Is it income-based? Is it, all these things? I'm going to bring up one more issue before I give you a chance to respond. The other one was really understanding that each of these kind of areas of different colored things to consider are weighted differently. But one thing that wasn't included in this, although readiness is included, there isn't an area that talks about deferred maintenance and having that be a factor. So if there's been a project that has been deferred for a long period of time, every year it's kicked to the next year, kind of a thing, shouldn't that also weigh in so that at some point it gets its day instead of saying, oh, it's always in this state of unreadiness because we keep kicking it and we never make it ready. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you would have some areas that have the most need always be deferred because they're never ready enough as other areas that have less need. And so those were two things I really wanted to hear. One, how are we defining equity? Are we using existing platforms? What are we using? And then two, can we add another category that's around, I don't know what the word is or the term to describe it, but when something has been deferred for a long period of time that that weighs, that actually gives a weight that it's been something that needed to be done for a long period of time, and now we're going to say this thing gets its day. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Martinez, City Council members. For the first part of that question, I would like to ask the help of probably the city manager or even our community development director, because he has some historical factors there.
I think, if I may, Mayor, through the chair, Councilmember Robinson, I think to the degree to which the council is amenable to using the SB 535 disadvantaged communities criteria to define equity, that would be helpful, but staff is open to new criteria as well pertaining to equity.
Could we bring forward what exactly is in that SB 525?
We can ask staff to pull it up. It'll probably take a minute.
Yeah.
But while we go on to discuss the next question, and if it's okay, Mayor, we can come back to that with an illustration from the computer.
Yes, I wanted to mention that there were two items that were mentioned under equity, and one of them was a GARE work.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was the environmental justice element that we have in our goals and objectives.
I am unfamiliar with whether either of those specifically speak to each kind of area of the city, so that we can understand how equity would apply to that area. Is it specific to like our specific neighborhoods?
It's specific to classes of people economically and racially. So that, in some way does pertain to specific neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying that that we would consider all three of these things, the SB 535 criteria, as well as GARE, as well
Yes.
as the environmental justice?
Yes, and that's to be determined by us in this conversation.
Okay.
And regarding the second point, the category about like a deferred need, right? Yeah, it could be added. I think this is the opportunity to, from a staff point of view, it would be great to have this conversation, and then you give us direction. Maybe you want to add that category and assign specific points, but try to make the exercise that everything adds to 100. So let me make this example. If that's a category that the city council wants to add, and we put a name on it, and you want to add 5 points, just to put a number, then you have to reduce by 5 points somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that way we can stay in 100 and make everything proportional. And also, as the mayor said, I mean, staff is is bringing the equity, right, discussion, and it will be good if there's some consensus today that way, that will give us also a direction in how to evaluate that.
Are all the blues 5 points? I can't see it from here. 8.
Point
The
of
ones-
order, can we ask the slide of that come up? I cannot read it. If we could ask KCRT to bring up
Yeah.
that slide?
I can't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, 8 points. So yeah, I mean, I would like to ask today that the council consider including this, I don't know what the proper verbiage is, but this kind of deferred maintenance or deferred project as one of the criteria, and that it be put on the same or similar level or split points with readiness. So it's a counterbalance to readiness.
I would agree with that. And I think one of the things that we should do after we come to agreement as to what prioritization system we want to use is to do a quick run-through of the projects and figure out how many of them, do have a long history, and whether or not they are still applicable to the neighborhoods that they're slated for.
That's all the questions I have for now.
Councilmember Bana?
Thank you. Can we, KCRT, can we keep the slide up, please? My question, so to summarize the previous point raised by Councilmember Robinson, Mayor Martinez, you said that we're going to define equity? Am I correct? So
Yes.
how and when?
I said today in our looking at what criteria we want to use.
Okay,
in
so at
order-
the end of discussion, together we define
Yes.
equity. Thank you. Could you provide an example of housing to get the points for housing? 8 points.
Is Ms. Lina Velasco online right now?
Ms. Velasco and Ms. White are on their way. They had other meetings that they're concluding, and so they'll be joining us momentarily in person.
right here.
Oh, there she is.
Just
You can tell who was on the team helping develop the criteria.
Yeah, this one? No, or this one?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I'm sorry, Councilmember Bana, do you mind repeating your question?
An example of getting 8 points for housing in a capital improvement project.
So the reason we added this one, if it enabled a housing project, so one of the council priorities is to improve housing quality, housing affordability, and access. So there may be, so for example, the city has an affordable housing sustainable communities grant related to Metro Walk. That project requires a certain amount of transit enhancements components. And so you would, if the capital improvement project is tied to an affordable housing project, that's how you would obtain those points.
Got it. I thought those elements will come to the project, but they're separate, you're saying.
Well, depending on the granting agency, the transit or right-of-way improvements may be a component of the overall funded project.
Got it. Thank you very much. And in terms of community collaboration, it's only
Councilmember Bana,
5 points.
Councilmember Bana, can I expound upon that? So what staff is also looking for here is synergistic opportunities. So it's very, very difficult to build affordable housing. So in order to get points for applications, right? So when we apply for new market tax credits, we want to score as high as possible in order for our projects to be funded, right? So there may be a grant that we apply for, and we want to make sure that the city can note that we will provide a match or that there's other housing funding that may be available. And then we would aggregate all the funds together to then make a compelling application, not only for the improvements adjacent to the housing, but also the affordable housing development itself. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there are 2 elements: required work, which is legal requirements and funding commitments, gets 19 points. But collaborate, work with community members, combined resources gets 5 points. Can you explain what they are and why there is such a discrepancy in the number of points they're getting?
So I can try to help address that. So the required work, again, is it safety related? Is it a legal obligation? Did we already commit to the project? So for example, within the CIP pipeline, there's a lot of projects where there's a grant scope. We've committed to complete that. However, once we bid it, there's a funding gap. So we think the commitment or the obligation should rank higher in terms of a weighting score. It doesn't mean that the project doesn't have a collaborative aspect to it, because a lot of our work does, right? I mean, I think we're very much committed in cooperating and leveraging other funding. But in terms of this prioritization, we think that if it's a legal obligation, if it's a safety improvement, or we've already committed to completing the project and delivering it within a time frame, it should get higher scoring within that. Now, the collaborative, the 5 points, is really about working with community members, and in some cases, they're obtaining the grant funds and we're just a partner. But we do think that that's an important aspect. So certainly the weighting is part of the feedback we're hoping to get from you all.
Yeah, I
So it
would
could
like
be
to,
modified.
thank you very much, I understand, but I would like to object to 19 points for required work, where safety only gets 8 points. To give you an example, the Hilltop Green community needs an emergency public exit route, and it requires legal permission, it requires legal work, which the city attorney hasn't done yet. So as a result, because it doesn't satisfy the legal requirements as is, it's losing 19 points, while in terms of public safety, it should definitely have more than 19 points, because it's lives of like over 900 residents in the community. So this doesn't make sense.
Councilmember Bana, if I may, Mayor through the chair. The opportunity here that we have all found ourselves in, right, once Daniel came on board and put together the list of CIP projects, is that we have a large number of projects, right, that where grant applications were submitted, and our goal as staff is to preserve relationships with the grantors, especially state grantors. So we have made very difficult recommendations sometimes to the council that, if we could have it to do all over again, maybe we wouldn't recommend a specific project. But because an application was submitted and because it was funded, whether it's from the Strategic Growth Council or the Coastal Conservancy or any other funder, we want to maintain a good collaborative working relationships, because a large part of our CIP budget has depended on having those good working relationships, because we know right now it's very difficult and very competitive when we apply for grants. So that's why we've rated it we've suggested 19. It doesn't mean the council has to go for that, but it just know that if we start pulling back on things where we have made a commitment, then we could sour those relationships. And right now, we think those relationships at the regional and state level are extremely important for the long-term better of our entire community, because we want to go back and get additional grant funds in the future.
I understand and I respect that and appreciate the information. At the same time, we should have two sets of criteria. Like, if there is grant involved, obviously they get priority, like Point Mulate biking path, because we already had a grant of $2 million. We added another $2 million, not to lose the grant, it's obvious. But what if there is no grant? Then this pointing system is not very meaningful. So my suggestion is just have points. If grants are involved, we're getting grants, take care of that. For the other projects, this doesn't make sense the way it is.
If I might, these points, if someone has the possibility of getting 5 points on plan implementation, but that doesn't mean that they will automatically get 5 points. They may just get 1 point, or they may get 0.
Correct.
So that's true of all the other areas.
Okay.
So this is just ballpark points for different criteria, and
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, you notice that Ms. Velasquez just explained that housing, for example, when we have grants for a housing project, we want to do, transit and stuff around it, makes sense. Required work, if there's grant involved, we are adding points. So grants are involved in everything. Why don't we just give points, 25 points, 50 points for grants, if it is, and just divide the rest in a way that's more rational?
See, we're not arguing that. I just want to, KCRT, can you bring back slide number 21, please? It's just a slide prior to that one. Oops. No, I'm sorry, 22. Yeah, so the reason why we're here is that we want to create some type of clarity and order to the many different directions that we have received. And for example, in the CIP budget priority, which is a triangle in the right corner, right? That one, the beginning, The priority in A was legal regulatory obligations, for example, right? So what the points that you see here is the understanding of staff of what you want, but we don't read minds. So this is the opportunity to hear from you exactly, just focusing on this conversation. If you want to remove points, perfect. Let's have the discussion. In the end, what we want to leave today is what a rating that is supported by the entire city council, that we now can provide to you better and faster prioritization, which is what you always ask us. And believe me, we have spent you and us, so much time in these meetings adding, no, you just said it, we need another system. We keep adding system, we're never gonna end. We want to have a system that all of us agree on, and then we can move on to really do the work that we all need. So what you are seeing is our understanding. We may be wrong, and we have no problem being wrong here, but what we don't want to be is wrong after this meeting.
Thank you. So actually, you do have priority B, necessary projects that rely on outside agencies for funding. So why don't we just allocate some points to that and then separate the rest, so it's not spread all over the criteria?
And just to say mandatory, regular, I mean, I know because that's our reality, we have focused a lot on grants that we have, but actually this methodology is for new projects coming up, right? Projects that right now, they have no funding right now. We have a big list of needs and projects. Let me give you the dog dog park project that you want. There's no money for that, no now, right? But in that one, for example, we'll have to go through this process because it's a new one. It doesn't have a grant, so there has no grant obligation. In our conversation about this type of obligations in grants, but in reality, it's other type of regulatory issues. For example, ADA compliance. If you want to pave, I mean, every time somebody says, my street have not been paved, depending on the type of treatment we do that pavement, that triggers legal federal requirements, ADA requirements to upgrade all the ADA curb ramps. And that is something that we cannot just disregard. We have to do it. Right.
I appreciate it. Thank you for being open to suggestions. On the example of dog park, for the information of the city council, I would like to say that in our community, there is no dog park. We only have one park that doesn't have restroom, doesn't have enclosed toddler area. We have a very small community center that does not have air conditioning. As the result, we don't have a place for community building. There are many elderly people with dogs. People have been complaining about dog ordinance. You know, the city does not have the resources to, enforce it. But if we have a dog park, we can have the benefit of community building. People won't have to drive to Costco dog park, so it saves on carbon footprint, air pollution and everything. And those elderly people really need a place to meet. It's mental health in addition to physical health. Based on this criteria, and by the way, there is a flat piece of land owned by the city. All it needs is fencing around it, less than 50,000, maybe less than 20,000. No, I need to finish, Mr. Mayor. This is an important example because it directly relates to the criteria. Let me finish, please. And the community is willing to volunteer and install them. However, that project based on these criteria will never have priority. So there's something wrong with this picture. I'm asking for your help. How do we get around it?
I think it's a discussion with the city council. I mean, how the city council defines equity, for example, right? That the mayor just mentioned it, and yeah.
Okay, and one more question. In your view, should we have any points for communities, maybe as a part of equity, communities that haven't had any projects in recent years, like the past 2 or 3 years?
I think the point that Councilmember Robinson addresses that, I mean, the deferred needs, right? So we would, I mean, that applies to all the districts in the city.
And if I may, Mayor, through the chair, that we have the map whenever you're ready.
Okay. I do want to point out the fact that every district has a special issue. And if we take our time describing what that issue is to make a point, we're going to be here for a very, very long time. So I suggest that we refrain from talking about the issues and talk about the pointing system.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, that was an example to highlight the problem with this pointing system.
I realize that, and as you heard me say, if every person uses this platform to make an example or to make a point using an example with as much detail as you shared with us, we will be here for a very, very long time,
If we have to, we have to.
until 11 o'clock.
Why not?
Technically, we can go past that because it's a special meeting.
Oh,
The rules only apply to the regular ones.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you have more questions?
Well, not at this point, but
Me?
you make me feel like I'm over quota. I'll keep it for later on.
Make you feel how?
I passed my quota in terms of time. I'll wait.
Mr. Mayor, there's a suggestion here.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez and members of council, I haven't talked yet, but for the record, my name is Robert Armijo, Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer. So I'm listening to the comments, trying to reconcile some of what I'm hearing, and then just a suggestion for council's consideration. So equity, maybe that's broken into subcategories, and maybe council could suggest how many of the 19 points are distributed amongst the subcategories. The subcategories could include equity, as I believe Gabino is going to describe in a little bit, equity as maybe as defined as equity amongst the different districts, and then also maybe equity in terms of, has a project been kind of stuck so long? I don't really know what term to use for that, but the third subcategory could be, the idea that it would make it more equitable if a project would receive more attention in terms of resources if it received the resources it could get potentially moved along. So just an idea. Maybe there can be subcategories and some points assigned from amongst those subcategories to define to staff how to score that area.
Okay, thank you for your ideas. We'll move on to Councilmember Cepeda. Vice Mayor Cepeda, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. You gave us a week to noodle on it, so this was great. Thank you. I also agree about the deferred maintenance. I think that's important. Our city is over 100 years old, so a lot of parts are more newer than others, and some parts have not had any love for many years. I was trying to follow the numbering, and the total won't get to 100 unless a particular item meets all the blue sections together. But the blue sections are city council goals, correct?
Blue and green.
Well, no, the green is sort of the criteria, but our goals that we came up with 2.5 years ago are the blue section. Those were the buckets. So, and I'm just trying to figure out here how we're all thinking about how we approach this. So in our strategy session 2.5 years ago, we put different things under the different buckets. Environment, quality of life, for example. And can an item really get multiple ones, or are they going to fall under one city council goal criteria? So technically, the most you can get is 68 points, or walk me through the point system here.
Yeah, one project is going to be evaluated in every single one of these categories. As the mayor mentioned, a project may get full points, right, in a single category, or just partial points, or 0 points.
No, but in terms of city council goals, so let's say dog park, right? We want to put up a dog park, and we also say, let's qualify it here. Will it be able to qualify for 8 points in each one potentially? Or is it just going to be under one city council goal? Because right now, parks, also dog park is already one of our goals, falls under quality of life. If you remember, 2.5 years ago, that big spreadsheet, in there's got quality of life and it's got parks. And then one of them in there has dog parks in there. So technically, it only could get that 8 points, even though it might touch some of
So,
the other ones.
Yeah, I think I understand the question. Let me try to answer it, and you let me know if this answers your question. So one part that we haven't made the connection is with the programmatic approach. Presentation we made in November, and it's a presentation we plan to bring next November to you with the first draft of the programmatic approach. One of the first steps is to have this methodology. So what's going to happen is all park projects, all of them, are going to be evaluated against each other with this methodology. So we said back in November, we don't want to be saying which one is more important, the fire station or a park, or a park, or the maintenance of the roadway. Everything is going to be evaluated separate in each program. The pavement program is going to evaluate all the roadways in the street, right, only. The sidewalk program is going to do the same with sidewalk only. In the open space and facilities is going to be all the parks together, that they're going to be compared to each other with this methodology. So yes, when you go to parks, some of these categories might not be that important. And maybe all parks are going to rank 0 in some categories, but it doesn't matter because it's relative, right? Because in the other categories, they're going to be ranked according to their priority. And then we will be able to bring to you, this is for the program of in parks. These are all the facilities in parks that people have asked, that you have asked, and this is the ranking, and you will be able at that moment, you know what, we think you discuss it, and maybe you just change it, right? But we start somewhere.
But yes, Vice Mayor Zepeda, yes, within the criteria where there are 8 points and there are 5 options, yes, the idea is that you could get more than one of those 5.
Yes.
So if a dog park.
But it would have to meet the criteria, like, does it remediate a site if it's for the environment, or does it, is it adjacent, and could it provide economic stimulus because, you know, there's going to be a coffee cart? I don't know, I'm making these things up.
Yeah.
Will it enhance the quality of life? And is it being designed with septed so then it will bring safety to the community, right? But if you just say, and is it included in a proposed development project, right? So
Thank
then
you.
that would be like, I kind of made those things up. Those might not get you 6 points for every single category, but it would could potentially get you some points.
More points. Thank you.
Right.
So then the
Okay.
cumulative, so we can.
Yes, it's
as we're-
cumulative.
As we're brainstorming, then whenever we have our projects coming up, we could say, I want a dog park, and then with the coffee cart, and build a little tiny village next to it. Right now, the project is going to get much bigger, but you can get more points and potentially get that.
When we're talking about moving to the programmatic approach, right now, here, just pay attention to the conversation we have, and we're talking about a dog park in a specific district. Like that dog park only is needed in that district. We need dog parks in every single district of the city. So the programmatic approach is going to see that as a whole. And it's going to say, okay, there's a need here, there's a need here. Maybe in a specific district, there's a need for 2 parks. I don't know, right? Dog parks. So we'll put all together. They're going to be evaluated against each other. We're going to put it in a calendar, and we're going to come back and say, you know, the $100 million that we were talking to you about in November of last year, in reality, is 150 if you want to do all of them. But if you want to do all of them now, it's $10 billion. If you want to do all of them in the next 10 years, it's $100 million or 150 every year. So, but that information, we don't have it yet. But to start, we need to have a methodology so we can come back to you with the more educated information for you to make a decision and give us direction.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I also agree about separating and putting different points between the legal and the funding commitments, just because looking at the list, as an example, you've got the ADA plan. That's a legal requirement. And then you have the funding commitments. I don't know that we have any funding commitments there. But then we also have I'm just going down the list here, Carlson Boulevard Crosstown Phase 3 doesn't have any funding that I know of. Or let's say it does, but it's not a legal requirement, but they might potentially get the same points in there. They both might get 19 points. So I think if we separate it, they can either get more together.
Well, again, of course, we've been talking about grant requirements right now as something that is pushing the projects because we discovered this many projects in the past 2 years, and now we have this commitment, right? But moving forward, we are going to go ahead of the grants. We'll know there's a need of 20 dog parks in the city. We need $3 million, right? Let's go for a grant for these $3 million. Now we know how much we're looking for. Don't apply for a grant of $100,000 if we know we have to put $2.9 million more and we don't have. So we will know what type of grants and the amount, where we're going, right? So the type of requirements we're talking about are requirements that are by law. So let me give you an example. You were one of the ones that led this conversation about moving to the zero emission vehicle transition plan, right? And we're working on that right now. But that's a legal commitment in the state of California. Unless the state of California changes the rules, we have to do it. And if we come to you and say, we need $10 million, I'm sorry, that's the only $10 million you have to do this park, we're giving more points to this one because there's a legal repercussion if we don't do it.
And that's what I'm saying, that we should be splitting it up because potentially they can get more points together if it's needed. If the EV one is a legal requirement and a funding requirement, you can get the 19 points together, but if it only meets one or the other, maybe it's half a point. There's a lot of projects, so we have to figure out how to start defining each one of them and separating them because we're going to have more projects than money and time. So just trying to figure out, I think if we split them, it might help us. And then looking at, it'll be great to see if we can get a list of sort of projects that affect us citywide, like lighting and ADA sidewalks, right? That's a citywide, so we all think about the city altogether anyways. But looking at projects, say this is going to affect us. This is $10 million split up between the whole city because we need ADA access and lights. Or maybe it's just 2 or 3 districts together, or maybe it's just one district. So we're talking about equity and also looking at equality, figuring out that page there so that we can, again, start defining it as we're trying to prioritize, because I'm afraid that some of them might end up getting similar point system at the end, and then we're still going to have to figure out how to break it apart. So the more pieces that we have to being able to qualify them, I think is going to help us at the long end. And then maybe something more on the community, if there's maybe some volunteers. I don't know, there's a volunteer project for parks, for example. Maybe that gets a little bit of points if we are able to team up with some of them. And obviously not all of the projects will be able to have volunteers, but some of them might. So maybe there's a little extra something or other to kick us over or to help start that project if it needs to. And then
So
maybe
Vice Mayor, before you move on, so the collaborate prioritization factor would address the volunteer component, right? So if the CIP project comes with a collaborative effort, whether it's a neighborhood council, a community group, just any organization, that's where those points would be counted.
Thank you for that. So then collaborate, is that where the neighborhood council is going after funding? Or is it where they just bring the volunteers and we bring in the funding? Or is it both?
The funding doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a financial commitment. It could be, like you said, a volunteerism where there's some component of achievement that you can value in some way, whether it's a partnership and a grant where you do need to have outreach components, but it's also could be a volunteerism component.
Okay, thank you. And then it'll be great to see too, because if we have in the particular district, again, if we were able to put the list by district as well, and then there's 20, then figuring out, we go out to the community and say, they all get the same points, right? They all reach 100. So now we have 20 that are 100 in one district, figuring out how do we work with the council member to go to the community all together and saying, okay, out of these 20, we could only do 2 or 1, right? Community, you pick. The council already did our job by prioritizing. We gave them all 100 points. You're going to have to take us to the next level. So just figuring out how to continue having more conversation with the community so they can help us get across the finish line should some of these have the same points.
I think that the big challenge is not going to be if it's going to happen or not, it's the sequence, because everybody wants to be first.
Yep.
And if you do all the projects you want at the same time, there's going to be chaos in the city.
I
If you
agree.
pave every single street in the city, even if we have the money, nobody will be able to mobilize. So that's why we keep saying the best amount of money that we can have in the city of Richmond for paving is $15 million, 1-5. If we get more than that, it's great, but that's when people start getting, having trouble mobilizing internally, because you're going to have a lot of streets with detours, and it's
Yeah. No, I agree. But if we
problematic.
have, again, 10 projects and they all get in one particular district and they all have 100 points, which one's going to go first? If we could only do one or two, right? And that's where I think that part of the process should be, if points are equal in a particular district, we go out and continue having conversations with the community to help them break the tie and say, okay, these 10 score 100, community, you prioritize, because at the end of the day, it's about the community that's going to be affected.
Can I I think those are great comments, Vice Mayor. Just two kind of responses to that. One, in the programmatic approach, we're not necessarily going to be comparing a fire engine to the dog park, for example, or a fire station to a dog park. They will be compared to other projects within the category. So that should help with some decision-making in that area, especially if council has an idea of how much money they want to allocate to each program. Another comment, too, that we made in our presentation last week, this is a tool for staff to be able to make a recommendation to council, a very regimented scoring system, so that we can give council, and we can say, hey, this according to our criteria, this project scored an 82, for example. Council can still opt to select other projects. You can say, hey, we really think that the project that was 72 points is more important. We would really prefer to fund that. So council still retains its discretionary authority over how it allocates funds to projects. So I just thought I'd mention that too.
So if you have a fire station and you have some parks and some other projects in there that all meet the same criteria, how would you look to prioritize that if they all get 100 points each?
So we would only be comparing fire stations to fire stations. So, I'm just, hopefully I don't get the fire department angry, but if we compared fire station 63 to 66, they would get different scores. And so staff would be telling you, hey, this station scored slightly higher than the other one, and it's only compared to that because parks is a different
prioritize that fire
program.
station. Yeah, so let's say section 67 or whatever, they get 100 points versus section 63.
Right, and you can still say, even in that category, because council might say, hey, we want to assign this much money to this program, and then when you're looking at our scoring.
I'd like to cut this short, because the decision isn't theirs, the decision is ours.
No, yes, but it's about the scoring, so I'm just saying if there's an equal point, like how do we end up breaking it, but we're trying to figure out something that it's more
I know,
fair.
and what I'm saying is that we're not dividing points to get different numbers. We're dividing the points to get equity, to get all of the items listed. So if something gets a lot of points, it's because it deserves a lot of points. And, if we divide the points so that it's more evenly distributed, then we're not really meeting the needs.
But that's not what I'm saying.
That's
I'm
true.
saying, what I'm saying is if there's a couple of projects that all have 100, they're all equal.
Right.
It's just trying to figure out what are the next steps. And yes, they come back to council, but I'm trying to have it where
Okay, well.
we start getting more
yes,
community
when-
input.
When it comes back to council, we have our strategic goals and objectives, and it's things that we as a council had come up with, and we look at that and decide which of the objectives is more important to us as a council and to the city as a city. And some of them meet more city council project criteria than others. So we might consider that. For instance, the Borman Park site remediation has 1, 2, 3, 4 different city council project criteria, and I could read them off to you if I look for it, whereas the Carlson Street Crosstown Connective Phase only has 2. So that's the kind of information that we will consider if 2 things have the same number of points.
Perfect. That's the question I'm asking staff, to make sure that we incorporate that into this here. So when it comes back, then we have to break down, but also community, we should be leading with the community and having them help us out as well. All right, no further questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Thank you. I really like this criteria, but I think like for me it's really confusing the direction of this item, because it said receive a presentation and provide direction to staff on the status of the capital improvement program CIP budget request, new CIP request, propose citywide prioritization factors and weigh-in system, and what we are spending most of our time here and what you want more is in the last bullet point of this. So can we make, because if not, the capital improvement program plans, direction to the staff on the status of the capital improvement program plan, but that is related to this? Is that related to this? Or how, I'm just trying to figure out how the process is for making a decision here. Because I am not, if we are talking about this and you come out with a list of projects based on this prioritization, and here they are saying, no, we like this, but we want to add this, then you will have to go and change this and change the projects that are listed based on this prioritization, because now they are other things. So I just wanted to, maybe what we, can I finish? Thank you. Maybe what we need to do today is to give feedback to this, and is it, and make it easier that way?
If I might?
Of course.
I have looked at this, I've looked at the agenda item, and in my mind, to look at CIP requests, new CIP requests, propose our budget requests, our capital improvement changes, we need to decide what prioritization system we want. Do we want to stick with the one that we have now, or do we want to adopt a new one? Because if we don't have a system that we are going through everything with, then it's basically just a laissez-faire. Whoever has the best argument gets their project done, whether or not, it's to the best needs of the city.
And this is what I am asking, is what we are going to decide here is to give feedback to these prioritization factors and weight system before we also give direction on the status of the capital improvement program, the budget request, the new CIP request proposed. So
Yes.
Okay, well, I'd also like to say that this information was given to us a week ago, and I imagine that we would have thought about it and had opinions.
I am not saying that we haven't thought about it.
Excuse me. And that we would decide which prioritization system we would want to use so that we could go on to the other steps.
The thing is that, so then I wonder for a staff, they did all of these, the draft, the attachment, based on, I imagine, based on this prioritization. Is that right?
If I may, Councilmember, Mayor, through you as the chair, Councilmember Jimenez, I think what you said first is that would be our optimal desired outcome.
Okay.
We as staff are flexible, but our optimal desired outcome this evening is if we could leave this item with the council agreeing on a criteria, we would consider that a success.
Okay. Okay, that sounds fair for an ask right now, because if no, what I will see that the issue here is that we are going to approve something that we don't know Is we approving it with this criteria or the former criteria, and why it gets first in line, what project or not. And we are not going to have time here to do this and then have the staff to score all the projects here. It's impossible.
Right, so the council is all on the same page regarding the timeline, if I may. So the concept is, yes, you will have a budget presentation at your next meeting, but the proposed prioritizations, once the council determines how much you want to spend on CIP projects, right, then that would happen in June, okay? In terms of process and allowing staff the time to work through what your direction is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, so I want to ask the questions, a specific question about a specific projects, because then we will have that in another time. So based on, I agree also with the deferred maintenance, so I have a proposed points, if everybody agrees, is that we can have equity 19 points, and we can discuss after this what is equity, as Doria has been asking for. Required work 19 points, and readiness will have 12, deferred maintenance will have 12, and environment, economics, quality of life, safety, and housing will have 6 points each, and plan and collaborate 4 points each, and then we will have what Councilmember Doria is proposing, and I hear some other colleagues are agreeable with that, and that is my math. So thank you.
Okay, could you share those numbers again so that I can write them down? And
Yeah, so I said equity 19 points, and we will discuss more in detail what equity means. Required work 19 points, readiness 12 points, and we will add on another kind of like a category there called deferred maintenance, 12 points. Environment, economics, quality of life, safety, and housing, 6 points each, and plan and collaborate, 4 points each, and all of that add to 100 points. So
deferred maintenance gets how much?
12, like
12?
the same, like the readiness, which is what Councilmember Robinson suggested that we will do.
Deferred maintenance 12.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
So that gives us something to work with. All right, Councilmember Wilson?
Okay, I think some of my questions have already been answered, but just to make sure that I'm reality-oriented here, is it correct that the council is not bound by the scores that are issued through this scoring system? It's more of a tool to aid our decision-making? Okay.
Correct.
All right. And is it also true that because we, sort of under this sort of programmatic approach that's being built out, the idea is that when we're deciding between projects, we will be, generally speaking, deciding between similar types of projects, because it's true that certain sorts of projects, categories of projects are going to do really well, and certain ones like dog parks are going to be less, but it would be more parks versus parks and sewage versus sewage. So that's another way of sort of having some brakes on craziness on this.
Yes, and then to the degree that feasible, right, to the degree that the council wants to adopt and utilize the criteria, we think that would enable staff to effectuate projects more efficiently. Because then we would have more, instead of like evaluating projects so much, we would be bringing contracts for approval.
Yeah, okay.
In terms of staff time.
Okay, so I just sort of like to sort of put some context on it to make sure, like, I wasn't on city council when but I happened to attend a couple of meetings where CIP projects were presented and discussed, and I think council at that time raised a really good point of how do you decide which ones go next, and how do you decide which ones go to the top of the list and the bottom of the list, and I think very reasonably making a call for greater transparency in that process. And so I absolutely see this as a very challenging project that was specifically requested by the previous council. I wasn't on it, but I think it was a good request, and I think this is actually an excellent first pass at it. I absolutely understand. I think we're all sitting up here worried that in the scoring system, the stuff that our constituents care about are going to fall to the bottom, and the stuff that you know, and then we're bad representatives of, you know, is this going to have warped outcomes? Like, I think we all have a lot of anxiety about things like that, but I'm sort of leaning into the fact that we are not bound by how these scores come out. I also am sort of leaning into the fact that I actually have no idea how these scores are going to come out. When I look at the list of 50-something unfunded projects, I really can't tell you which ones are going to shine and which ones aren't, you know, just because I think that would be very difficult to predict. And so anyways, I would be happy passing it as is. If people want to make some small tweaks, I'm happy to look at those as well. But I guess I'm sort of leaning into, like, let's give this a shot. Let's let the staff go away and rank the project based on a criteria. You know, I think this one's fine. If we can arrive at a different one through some tweaks, I'm also open to that. And then when they come back with a list, that's when I'll have my response of being like, this is completely insane, or, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense to me. And I think that's the point where we're really going to see, does this create problems where certain parts of the city are completely ignored, or does it not create that problem? And sort of trust in our council colleagues that when we look at how this plays out, that if it has results that you think are completely unacceptable, it's quite likely other people on the council will be persuaded of that. So I think we asked for this. I'm glad it's here. I'm ready to give it a shot. I do have two little picky questions though, because I'm always scared that things are going to fall off the table. You don't have to like give me an answer to this now, but just to flag it. I noticed that attachment 1 and attachment 3 of unfunded projects, like I know they're from different time periods, but they also have a different number of projects on them. So I want to make sure something didn't fall off one list when it was getting transferred to the other that shouldn't have. And I also noticed on attachment 1, you have some numbers for the Booker T. Anderson Phase 3, which I believe is the roof. My understanding is that that was given $2.2 million in March during the surplus budget time, and that's not reflected on attachment 1. So I just want to make sure the fact that we did not give full amount of money to the BTA roof, but we did give some. So if there's a correction that needs to be made there, please make that. That's me.
Good afternoon, Mayor Martinez and Council. It's first time speaking, so for the record, my name is Joseph Munoz, Assistant Deputy Director of Public Works Engineering. So we'll go in reverse order. In terms of funding for BTA, that is correct. We are working out that additional $500,000 that was originally there. We moved it to Parchester. That will be displayed in a future meeting and clarified then for fiscal year 25-26. Regarding the first questions between the variances between attachment 1 and attachment 3. Attachment 3 was to reflect a CIP update that we provided in March. And from there, we wanted to display and show that certain projects were part of 1 and then moved into attachment 2. Everything is accounted for there as we continue to refine the unfunded project request list. So that's where they'll all be rolled up in an eventual presentation to Council to display the future unfunded requests. Maybe some will be funded in fiscal 25-26, some in future years, but it's an ongoing list. And in response to a presentation we gave in November from fiscal year 22-23 unfunded, where Council looked at it today, some of these are duplicates or some of these are actually been funded, and that was the point, is to kind of us to spend the next 6 months to refine it. We presented it in March, we refined it again in April, and then you'll see the fruits of our labor in May.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bana.
I'm still thinking that the points about grants or complementary projects should be separate. We have the shadow of that grant factor in several categories, in required work, housing, plan, collaborate. And this just doesn't make sense, and to me, it doesn't make it very objective. Is it possible to give like 50 points to grants or complementary projects, like if it's a housing, you have to do a streets around it, and then divide the other 50 proportionally?
I'm sorry, so you,
So we make sure that if there is a grant involved or complementary projects being done, it's a side project that, it's complementary to that, it will be done, that completes that project. But instead of having it all over the place.
That, if I may, through the mayor, that's it's the council's decision what the criteria is. Like, anything is possible. This is a framework we're suggesting, and it's up to the council to provide us direction on how.
My question basically is, do you agree that we have that grant and completing factor on required work, housing, plan, and collaborate?
As staff, it's not appropriate for us, when we're asking the city council to provide us policy direction on something like this, for staff to agree or disagree unless we think it's something way outside of.
No, but you
the scope.
decided this. I'm saying, does it make sense? I mean, do you consider it when you rate the projects? You came up with the criteria.
No, you said, could we put 50 points? That's what you
No,
said.
I'm asking, would you consider grants in these factors?
consider what, I'm sorry?
Grant money or
Yes,
the need
yes.
for in these factors. So this is not fair and makes it somehow subject. Let's just pull grant factor out, give it a weight that it will be done, like 30 points or 50 points, whatever it is,
You can provide
and
us
then
the,
decide on the other factors objectively.
so far we have the staff points, right? Where Councilmember Jimenez provided specific numbers for each of the categories. You have a number for each of them, or you want to just change some? So, I mean, because that would be a discussion for the city council, but it would be good if you provided specific numbers.
If I may, what I'm hearing is that Councilmember Jimenez provided a weighing factor. You're proposing another weighing factor, but you're not giving us all the numbers. So if you want something to consider, you need to make the proposal so that we can have that conversation.
Okay, so I just want to make sure what I'm suggesting is well understood, that the grant factor, we can pull it out separate. We can come up, for example, with total of 200 points, 100 for grants, 100 Ds objectively without any grants, or however we want to divide it. But the way it is, grants are in multiple factors, and it's hard to keep it objective and fair.
So
Grants are considered in required work, in housing, plan, collaborate, in 4 factors.
So can you give us a weighing?
I'm not
system?
finished. I have some other suggestions, and then maybe we can discuss and come up with that. To me, community building is very important. I suggest we have some factor for community building. I need to calculate how it is. I know usually whatever Councilmember Jimenez suggests will go through. Still, I'm trying my best. Because community building is very important for
You're giving explanations without giving us a weight to them. So if you can give us a weight.
I need to think about it. It
Oh,
just
okay,
came
well,
up. She just suggested, but I'm explaining what it is while others talk. I
Okay.
can't come up with a weighing scheme.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's other council people who need to speak, and that'll provide you the time to
I have one more
figure out.
question before the.
Okay.
You suggested something, and I'm confused about it. You said you won't consider, maybe I misunderstood you, that you wouldn't consider a single dog park, even if it's like under $50,000, you need to consider dog parks for the entire city? Is that what you said, or I misunderstood you?
No, I gave that example because we're moving to the programmatic approach, and that's how we are going to start seeing things. Projects are going to be the end result of the programmatic approach. And for example, whatever, we have a brick list right now on new CIP projects. For this cycle, we won't be able to do it under the programmatic approach length. We don't have time. But in November, we will come back to you and show you, okay, how all the projects that we already have and any other project that you're going to add during the budget season will fit into the programmatic approach. And we're going to have a transition until in the future, we're going to come to you with this program requires this amount of money. This program requires this amount of money. And under this program is all these CIP projects. And they look where they all in sequence for the next 5 to 10 years that they're going to be built. And that's how we're going to approach
And
it.
last question, how do we bring up new projects? We directly submit it to you, or it comes to the council to be added to the list? How does it go?
Well, the first one was projects, how do you call it, legacy projects that were unfunded, that we inherited, we presented to you back in November, and so we have those. Then we have projects that have been submitted a form that these are the need, this is the need, this is what we require, and we're putting it all together. And that's why we have, that's why you have the attachment. If you don't see a specific project in that attachment, I suggest you bring it up to staff for the budget season.
Thank you. I'll be working on the proposed numbering.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you. Councilmember Jimenez?
Yeah, thank you. Just quick, based on this list, I have some suggestions about kind of like how to look at it. I know that it's going to be after, so it's not for now, but I will wanted to say is the fire station 66, you put like restroom, rebuild, rehab. I think like one of the things that we had been discussing here is the need for just kind of like have a fully rebuild of that. So I don't know, like, is this $40 million that you are putting here is for the full rehab or not, or maybe it's more? So I just wondering.
Is our ballpark number right now?
For the whole, for the whole
Yes, but again, the wrong.
Rough order of magnitude.
Correct.
And so once we get the RFP out and get responses back for the architect, then we will provide an updated number to council specifically for the fire station improvements based on a subject matter expert's opinion.
Okay. So
But I can tell you, there's a 95% chance that that number is going to change.
yeah, no, I just want to make sure that like we understand that these are rough numbers that are going to change based on all the things that we have, all the factors. The other thing is the Nichols Park. And one of the things that we have been also discussing is not the need for renovation of the Nichols Park, but for the renovation of the recreation.
Excuse me.
building. And it's part of this list.
I know, but we're not discussing the list, we're discussing the prioritization system. And what we have on the list is here not by preference, but it's just listed. Is that correct?
Yeah, no,
So-
what my intention is not putting saying that I want Nichols Pass to be first or not. I just wanted to make sure that the whole project is part of, not just one particular piece. So when the budget is coming out, we have the right number for the right type of project. So I am not discussing
Right.
whether it should be first or not. It's just kind of like that I noticed that they put here some recommendations, but I want to make sure that when they come out with the recommendation, gets more information.
And I would like us to stay focused on the prioritization list so that we can at least get one item done, because if we continually talk about the items individually, we will be here for a long, long time and not make much progress.
I am ready to get a motion.
So before I move on to Cepeda, I do want to read something that I wrote concerning this item. I believe that this is a needs-based CIP. This isn't a district-by-district CIP. This is a City of Richmond CIP. We were elected to govern the city by addressing the needs of the people. We cannot lie to ourselves or our constituents and say that we are all on equal footing. There are those amongst us that have been historically left behind, ignored, and treated as if they didn't matter, not only in this city, but in this nation. To right these wrongs, we need leaders that serve the previously underserved and marginalized communities that we all represent. We need to address areas that have been the most neglected and need immediate capital to increase the quality of life for those who live in those areas. We have to be mindful to lead the people and not campaign the people when it comes to health and welfare as we sit on this dais. So with that in mind, I hope we can continue our conversation. Vice Mayor Cepeda.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor, can I just mention one thing? So during the budget process, historically, we have what's called a budget checklist, and that would be the time if council wanted to ask a question about a future project or about projects, instead of coming to staff and inundating them with projects, that would be our preferred approach, which is the historic approach, is that process. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And something I don't see in here, and as I'm looking at one of the attachments, I don't know if there's space in here somewhere, but differentiating between internal projects and external. So I see one project here, for example, was documentation. I just lost it. It's from IT, document management. Or it's not from IT. Yeah, it is from IT. So that's sort of an internal. And I see this categorization here more as external. So I want to make sure that we also figuring out a way to work with the departments so that they get a fair shot.
Can you please refer which attachment, Vice Mayor?
Ooh, I opened all of them.
I know, I have them all open too.
This is attachment 2, draft unfunded request list.
Okay, and what item number?
And it's item number 24. And it's document management by IT for 500,000. And the amount doesn't matter. I'm just using that as an example, just because that was one, right? But I want to make sure that we're also prioritizing internal projects, because we will know outside, we can see the lights, the potholes, those we can see, we know about. But internal, how do we keep the lights on, right? How do we keep staff safe and how do we keep staff productive? So I want to make sure that we figure out a category in here to kind of say that we need 500,000 for IT to run IT, as an example, right? You know, might need more than 500,000, but figuring out a way, I just don't see it here. So that project might never make the list. So just want to put that out there.
If I might, when I went through this list, all of the items were included except for the one that you just mentioned, strengthen the city's internal infrastructure and processes. So that's not one of the items that is listed there. So maybe we should make another category, which goes to strategic goal 5.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning, is to put something else in there so we capture internal, and then we kind of figure out between all, I'm assuming all the departments are going to ask for something here throughout, right? Other than fire departments, that's a big one. It's an external kind of, internal, external, right? We get to see it, but the internal, we don't get to see. So anyways, kind of want to see what that's in there. And then anything in here to give points, or I don't know how we approach it, but if we've already given prior council direction, and I'll email later on, but there's some projects that council has already given direction, but they're not in the project. They're not in the list.
That is difficult, Vice Mayor, because we do not yet have a CRM system that's operational. So I think it would be helpful if during the budget development checklist process, if you have the specific dates of those items, and then it will be up to the council to provide input again, because it's extremely challenging given the volume of our agenda packets. Staff is working to develop a system to to automate the tracking, but it is not yet operable.
Thank you. Yeah, and I don't know that it needs to come back to council because we already gave that direction, but I just want to figure out, and maybe it's just working with you all on list that we all may have. But I don't know if it requires additional points, like, hey, you already went through all the council members, we already said yes, versus some of the projects in there. it's the first time we might have been seeing them. So I don't know if there's any point system for that.
If I might, I believe we should consider strategic goal 5, and it should have the same weight as the other strategic goals, the environment, economic, quality of life, safety, housing. So it should have 6 points. So the question is, where would those 6 points come from? And I would take 3 points from equity and 3 points from required work, so that things remain balanced. So that means strategic goal 5, which is strengthen the city's internal infrastructure and processes, would have 6.
Could you provide an example of that?
I'm sorry?
Provide an example of CIP for the goal you just mentioned?
The document management.
Okay.
So internal
And
process.
so the equity would be 16, and required work would be 16. So these are just suggestions. I'll let Vice Mayor finish, and then you'll be next.
And then in terms of going after grants, and I know this is, I'm trying to figure out which comes first, but for required work, right, we have the legal requirements and then funding commitments, which means we've already gone after grants. Are we going after grants based on the huge CIP list we already have? Or are we going after grants and then saying, oh, we found, because it might work both ways, so I'm just trying to figure out, just clarification. If we see a good grant, do we just go after it and then bring it back and say, hey, we found this money, let's put it as a CIP project? Or is it, the council said, let's do this project, let's go find money?
If I may, Vice Mayor, so we recently got an email from one of our elected representatives, and I asked, I said, Ms. Velasco, can you please follow up on this? So Lena, can you use the opportunity that we just received as an example?
Yes, I think the short answer would be both. Some grants do not require a match. So if we could fully fund a project from the list that we know is unfunded, or it's something that's in a plan that hasn't made it onto the list but is known to be something we're pursuing. But certainly there's required work. So the recent Prop 4 grant was around wildfire prevention safety. So what we've done already is reached out to parks. One of the funding is equipment. They will fund for purchase of equipment that will support vegetation management. So Jason, our parks and landscaping superintendent, has already said, great, here are some of the things I need. And so now we're going to draft. And so that may be able to cover some of the other costs that would have otherwise come from our budget. There may be a programmatic element too around education, around vegetation management, community education around sort of these new regulations. But I think we need to have the flexibility for both, because in some cases we may need to come to the council because the grant application requires a commitment from the council, and we don't, certainly if it's over $10,000, we would need authorization from the council in order to make that funding commitment.
Because I'm also trying to figure out, right, if we're, there's no right or wrong, I think it's great if we can get any free money is good. But if we're looking at prioritizing time and also resources, internal resources, and then we're going after grants that we as council haven't prioritized yet, how does that come about, right? And so, I mean, it could be important. It could be important, something that we found. Maybe we weren't looking for it, and it's like, hey, we have this free money, now we can all of a sudden redo something that we weren't thinking about. So I just want to keep that in the back of mind, and I'm not sure how it goes in there. And something to consider as well, under the required work for funding, might be breaking down, is there a match needed? Because that means it's our money that we have to match, which it's good, because we can get double potentially. But then it's, maybe we get a grant that we don't have to match. So now we have really free money, and we have our money to use for something else. So we might want to consider that in there, if it's required matching or not matching funding. So that's it for now. Thank you.
And so, Vice Mayor, in response to that, I think under the required work, obviously it's a maximum points, right, 16. So the rater would be considering, if we already say, well, there's 3 funding commitments in this project, then certainly it could max out at the 16 points that the council's discussing versus a project that has partial funding and still has a significant gap, that may rank lower. So I think that's too, just because you have a grant doesn't mean you max out at 16. So the rater, the person filling out the form is going to need to be very explicit in terms of what factors they're using to maximize points, right? So I do think that it's a range, right? I think the mayor had mentioned that earlier. It could be 0 to the max. So I think this is where the detail in the write-up that people have, because equity is not always, obvious by the project name and the description. And so having that discussion and what factors the person submitting the form is considering for the equity points and the environmental points, et cetera. So I do think the write-up, it's almost like, in some ways, like a grant summary write-up, that you're sort of providing documentation to support or try to achieve maximum points.
And if I could, good evening, everyone. LaShonda White, Deputy City Manager. After council comes up with the criteria and then staff goes back and evaluates all of the various capital improvement projects that we could go after, I think that will help staff determine which types of grants or what grants they will go after. A long time ago, I learned something called a go, no-go analysis. Just because there's a grant available doesn't mean you go after it. And so staff can take this information from the ranking and say, okay, we understand that council believes that these 10 things are priorities. And so if we have 7 grants in front of us, we might say we're going to go for these 3 because they align better with council's goals and priorities. They align better with our criteria. And then staff can make that decision. And so if council comes, or staff can make that decision. If council comes and says, what about this grant? We can say, you know what, this is a great grant. However, based on staff's availability, staff's capacity, we're going to turn this one down because we're going after these 4 that better align with council's recommendation. So I think this will really help us. And just because there is funding available, doesn't mean staff has to go after every grant, and we need to be very thoughtful about our time and the resources we have.
Thank you. When I was a elementary school teacher, I found that grants were determining the curriculum instead of the curriculum determining the grants, and the students suffered because of that. So what you say is very wise, and I think it's something that needs to be considered. So, Councilmember Robinson.
Yeah. So thank you for everyone for your contributions. I just wanted to echo what you just said. I'm really hoping that establishing this criteria gives more clarity on which grants we go after, because it is not just a matter of money, but a matter of staff time and how much time staff has to do anything. There's only so much staff. And so if we get too many grants that are not in alignment with our priorities, then we'll be committed to do those things, even if they're not our priorities, because our priorities won't be getting done, but all these other things will. And so, hopefully this will help us be more aligned with priorities and only go after money that support the priorities. And sometimes you just don't go for grants. That's fine. That's okay. So I do want to bring up a couple of things. One is I agree that we should add the other criteria around the internal city processes, making sure that there's a separate criteria for that so that it ranks well. 2, I wanted to second what the ranking or revised point system that Councilmember Jimenez put forward that included that kind of deferred maintenance and kind of areas of neglect. I think it's really important because we could set up, again, a situation where an area that has been neglected for a very, very long time is probably not very ready. So they will never rank, on this chart. And similarly, an area that has not had a lot of investment, although they don't rank high on other things, won't have a way to ever rank. So I really want to add that, and I think the points that Councilmember Jimenez put forward can make that possible, and that would be that you would have to take points from the plan and collaborate, and from the collection of council criteria in order to make the numbers work. And so in order to make that deferred maintenance possible, and then also add this other one. So maybe we need to rework these numbers again.
I did that when I,
Because you were still having 8 for.
no. I have 4 for plan implementation, 4 for collaboration, 6 for all of the ones under.
Oh, okay. 6 and then
And
12 for each of those?
And then 6 for strategic goal 5. So 6 for all of the strategic goals, 12 for project readiness, and the 6 that I put to strategic goal 5 came from equity and
Oh, yeah,
required
okay.
work, so
I'm
that's
sorry,
16
I
and
missed
16.
that.
No
So,
worries.
given that, I'm at a point now where, and I did read the SB 535 criteria, and I really agreed that we should add that. And I would like to, I don't know if it's time yet, but I would like to put forward that we make a motion that we pass this new criteria with the edits that were put forward by Mayor Martinez, and making the clarity that the equity element is governed by the SB 535 criteria, GARE, and the environmental justice element.
Okay.
That is my motion.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion in a second, but we do have a council member who was cogitating on her proposal, so I believe she's ready to share that with us now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to follow up on what you said about representing all residents of Richmond. So the District 4 has a special attributes that are not in common with other parts. For example, community building is very difficult over there. There is no hub for the community, no place for people to get together. I think community building is very important, not just for people to get together, build community, participate in local politics and everything. It's good for mental health as well. Isolation is a major issue. So I suggest we add community building as a factor with equivalent points with all those blue categories and divided equally.
So what are the numbers that you're proposing?
I haven't worked it out, but I'm sure it can be worked out. It's, I lost track of what was suggested, but equivalent to the other categories.
Mayor?
Yes.
Quick question. Is it a possibility if we could just add the community building component under collaboration or under collaborate to, is there an opportunity to add? Because instead of making a brand new category for certain things, can we just, because collaborate and community building is so similar to me.
But it could be more. For example, collaborate, the community volunteers to do it, and also it benefits community building.
All of that is under collaborations. So I think what she's suggesting is that we give it extra points. So the question is, how many points and where do they come from?
So those categories, safety, housing, plan, collaborate, how many points do they have now at the last proposal?
6 each.
Can we make them 5 each and add one more category of 5 for this?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's one extra point.
Well, we can make required work 18, or we can make equity 18. We can reduce 1 point from one of those major ones.
It's never going to reach 100 unless it might be a lesser number.
It's just 1 point, and I'm sure the Public Works Department can work it out.
It's our decision, not.
Oh,
Mayor, if I
okay,
may,
so-
when you guys are ready, when you're done, can you please repeat the points?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Also,
you.
I have a motion in a
Yes,
second.
there's a motion and a second.
Well, can I propose this friendly amendment to add community building
You may.
component?
Yeah,
May.
and I would not add it as its own component, but I would like to see if we couldn't adjust the language under quality of life and collaborate so that it names explicitly community building as qualifying under those elements.
Okay.
Can we add it under plan?
I mean, to me, it seems like it could fit really well, and it's a part of quality of life, community building.
But there's a
And so
project-
it would, So if your project is a community building project, then you would get quality of life points.
Right, but it could be a quality of life project, and it could get community
What's the
building
difference?
points as well.
What's the difference between a quality of life
For
project
example,
and-
a bike lane is not much, it's quality of life. But a park, community center, dog park, a hub, that's community building, where people can get together. My community has no Zumba classes, nothing, because we don't have a community hub. So community building is very important. That's a factor that's missing for many services in the community.
I mean, I still think that the way that we landed on these different criteria that are in this middle section was through an exhaustive process where we had all those different meetings and we made these buckets. Those things come from somewhere. They actually come from a long process of meetings with us and where we voted and narrowed down and created the buckets. And so I am hesitant to, kind of usurp that process and add a whole thing on that we haven't had that whole area of discussion. I think that we could add it in to make it explicit that it's a part of quality of life, that community building is a key element of part of quality of life, and people can get points in that way. But this comes from a process.
Mr. Mayor, this is important because this is.
Let me reiterate. She has a motion on the floor.
I know,
It
I'm
has a
trying
second.
to
Excuse me,
convince her to accept my friendly amendment.
You are interrupting me. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. We have a friendly amendment from you, which she can either accept or not. She has given you a substitute solution to include what you want under quality of life and health. This is not the time to debate that.
Why not? I'm reasoning with her to convince her to accept my amendment. What's wrong with that?
I don't accept it, I'm sorry, but I would accept adding it to quality of life and health under that criteria because I think it fits there.
It also fits under collaborate because it explicitly says work with community.
Yeah,
I
let's
agree.
add it at least under collaborate.
Yeah, I agree. It could fit under either category, and I would be amenable to adding it under either category.
So
if I can make
the
a
friendly
friendly
amendment
amendment.
is to add community building under item collaborations. All right, roll call on adopting the prioritization system with 4 points going to planned implementation, 4 points to collaboration, 6 points to the following categories: environment, economics, quality of life and health, safety, housing, and strengthening cities' internal infrastructure and processes. Project readiness gets 12 points. Equity and required work both get 16 points, totaling 100.
And you have to add deferred maintenance.
Yes, I'm sorry.
For 12 points as well. And then the addition of language for community building into the collaboration category.
So deferred maintenance goes where?
It's an extra added bucket for 12 points.
Oh, well, then we have more points than,
We don't, I can go through it one more time if that helps. And we do have 100 points. We've added it, we added it together. So your addition was correct.
Start at the top.
So what I have is equity and required work for both 16. We have, we have readiness for 12 points, and then we added deferred maintenance for 12 points
as a separate category?
as a separate category.
Well, then we have 12 points too many.
They removed points from, originally, each of the strategic plan buckets had 8 points, and they removed points from those buckets to add 12 points for the new deferred maintenance category.
Okay, all right then, thank you.
You're welcome. And then there's 6 points each for the 5 existing categories of environment, economics, quality of life, safety, and housing, with an addition of the strengthened internal services category, and so each of those have 6 points. Then you have 4 points for alignment to adopted plans and collaboration with community, with the added language of community building to the collaboration with community category, which equals 100 points.
All right, thank you.
Are we ready?
Yes, we're ready.
And you did get the definition of equity being those three things: the GARE, the environmental justice element, and SB 535 criteria.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Bonner?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Zepeda?
Yes.
And Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
The vote is unanimous.
All right, I think,
Great job, everyone. Thank you. This is a
Yes.
momentous occasion. It took a lot of work and a lot of hard work. So thank you to staff and thank you, council.
Our next item is item F3, is to direct the city attorney's office to draft an ordinance amending the Richmond Municipal Code, Chapter 11.05, fireworks, to triple fines for fireworks-related violations, specifically in high-risk zones, to mitigate wildfire risk and enhance public safety. We have one in-person speaker. Anyone that would like to address the council on this item, joining us online, please raise your hand at this time.
No, this is an old news.
Put it in our office.
yeah.
No, print the new one and put it.
And-
Oh, yeah, you need a new one.
Okay.
Okay. Too bad. Looks good. Thank you.
Just to remind you.
Every meeting, we're going to leave it here so you can see with the cameras.
I like it.
All right.
Is there a speaker?
This is Councilmember Bonner's item.
I'm sorry, you said there was public, there were public.
Public
speak-
speakers, yes.
Yes.
Oh, should I
you-
talk about it first?
Yes.
Oh, okay, very good. So, thank you. One of the LA fires actually was ignited by fireworks that was not fully put off and then reignited, and it was a major wildfire. So, 4th of July especially is in the summertime where we have red flag days, and we would like to rule out that possibility. We would like to discourage the public from having fireworks in very high fire hazard severity zones. So I'm proposing to triple the fine. I'm glad that Chief French informed us that the city administration now can enforce the ordinances regarding fireworks. That's great news. So I would like to minimize the possibility of major fires or wildfires in Richmond due to fireworks. Hence, I'm asking the city legal counsel to look into the existing ordinances and come up with a proper ordinance that triples the fines for illegal fireworks in WE areas, very high fire hazard severity zone.
So may we have our speaker? And then we'll get into discussion.
Okay, the in-person speakers are Cordell Hindler, Nancy Powell, Don Gosney, Janice Hagan, and Jamin Purcell. Please come forward. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Okay. So good evening, Mayor Martinez, council. Thank you, Councilmember Bonner, for bringing this item forward. Because as someone who is opposing of fireworks, because there are other alternatives for 4th of July. So, and I have friends of mine that live like near the sites where where people be shooting off fireworks. It is unacceptable. to me, as a tax-paying citizen, I am concerned about people's property value would increase with these fireworks. So I do like the idea of looking into this ordinance. So I'm fine with it. So I'm hoping that the city attorney's office can look into it, and we'll just leave it at that. So
Nancy Powell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council people. My name is Nancy Powell. I live in the north and east section. I've lived there for 7 years. The impact of illegal fireworks is profound in my community. It starts weeks before the major holidays and continues on. And I know that there are a great many things that we as a community face that are perhaps more alarming or more dangerous, but this is a serious quality of life issue for me and my neighbors and friends. I thoroughly endorse the idea of increased fines, but what I've observed is that it's really an enforcement issue. Well, first, probably rolling it back, it may be an education and outreach issue to get people aware of the impact on the environment, animals, people, wildlife, et cetera. And so to that end, I would really like to see bilingual outreach in the schools and the communities, advising about these, just the dangers of illegal fireworks and the new, potentially increased fines. Also, at one point where about a year ago, I did call the police. I was very reluctant. I knew they were overwhelmed, but I thought I would do it. And the response that I got was, oh, yes, we're getting many calls. And again, I could only point, well, I think that they're being let off, at such and such a street in the north and east section. And I know that by the time the police get there, the perpetrators are gone, and that it really becomes this game of whack-a-mole. So I would just encourage, more community outreach, more staffing. I know that there's serious challenges with the police. I was just having a conversation about this, but it's really a serious issue for us, for me and my neighbors. So thank you for taking it seriously. Appreciate it.
Don Gosney.
Thank you. Let's be honest here. Who doesn't love a good fireworks show? We love the pretty lights, the explosions, and especially the percussion blowing through what little air we have left. But now let's put ourselves in our yards trying to keep our homes from burning to the ground because an errant firework is targeted for destruction in the place where we live. And let's ask ourselves why this is even on the agenda. Is it that we don't like being awakened by the explosions, or maybe our pooch is going crazy with the noise, or is it that it triggers PTSD? Maybe, though, for a very few of us, it's the fear of fire. I've been through more major fires than anyone should ever have experience with. I've been around house fires, car fires, refinery fires, field fires, forest fires, and even the fire that burns my ribs and my barbecue. It was just a couple of years ago that 2 aerial fireworks were shot into the air, and they both landed in my backyard. One landed in a 5-gallon plastic bucket with a propane bottle from plumbing soldering work I was doing. The next thing I know, flames are shooting up from my patio 45 feet in the air. While waiting for our glorious and heroic firefighters to arrive, I'm standing on a 5-foot diameter by 10-inch thick puddle of flaming molten plastic with a garden hose trying to prevent the flames from igniting an acetylene B tank fused into the middle of that puddle. Had it blown, my house would have be gone. My neighbor's house would be gone, and they wouldn't find enough of my body to put into a matchbox for a casket. My feet were badly burned, my legs and my hands, and what was left of my hair has nasty singed smell, and my lungs were filled with toxins from the burning plastic. Because I've been unable to even get insurance quotes, the $48,000 loss came directly out of my pocket. And then over the next week or so, my backyard was broken into 10 times, my front yard, another 8 with unhoused neighbors stripping me of whatever the fire didn't consume for an additional $4,500 uninsured loss. And while I would love higher fines, don't you have to actually catch the evildoers first? And then you have to contend with our community and elected leaders that make excuses for them. One of your own even claimed that these fireworks were a cultural thing and should be accepted. Fines are a feel-good measure, but I fear that they won't make a bit of difference in stopping illegal fireworks.
Janice Hagan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Janice Haugen. I live in Marina Bay in Richmond. And I'm here to ask you to please vote in favor of F3, which is tripling fines for firework-related violations in fire-prone areas. I'm really grateful that Councilmember Bana is keeping the council aware of the fire danger caused by the use of illegal fireworks here in Richmond. Also, I would like to see the city ordinance conform to the state codes, 12700 and 12702, that were updated via AB 1403, signed into law by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2023 and went into effect January of 2024. Doing so would not only triple Richmond's fine amount for possessing 25 pounds of fireworks, it would quadruple it. All of Richmond would be covered by the quadrupled fine increase, not just the fire-prone areas. Since the state ordinance supersedes the city ordinance, it is technically already in effect. Having the city ordinance conform with the state's would reduce confusion about the fines for violations. So I hope that at bare minimum, you vote to update the current ordinance. But I would like to see fines tripled in the high fire areas. So thank you very much for considering my request.
Jamin Purcell.
So I am also in favor of having penalties furthered for fireworks. I do think that there is a significant problem, and this is something that, again, I think is a state problem because we have them coming in from Nevada, primarily into California. They are not coming from overseas. They're not coming from down south. They're coming from Nevada, where it is legal, and people are picking them up and they're driving them in. However, the one issue I do have with this is the composition of it, is that it introduces a host liability. And the host liability issue is that it is holding people responsible for if a minor is using fireworks on a property, it could be potentially the property owner, or it could be the parent that is going to be held responsible. Now, under the whereases, it does say that they should know, or they are the most likely to know. But that doesn't mean they do know. And quite frankly, as a person who was, when I was young, playing with fireworks, terrible idea, don't do that. But my parents didn't know. And I think that that introduces an element of unfairness because really the bigger issue is that we need to deal with education, deal with people understanding what the consequences are for these actions. Now, that said, if people are full-on adults and they're doing it, I think it's absolutely wrong. And beyond all the issues that Dawn said, I was told by people who are opposed to me that it was a cultural thing. So I think there's many people who think it's a cultural thing. I don't think it's tied to any one person. However, I do think that it needs to be fairness when they're applying it. It needs to be people who understand the consequences, and we should do everything possible to give a clear understanding of what the impacts are of this dangerous action. But yeah, I think we just need to evaluate the aspect of that host liability because ignorance of somebody's possession of something shouldn't mean that they're going to be subject to horrendous penalties unknowingly. So that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I jump in on that point for a moment? Sorry, point of clarification. The agenda report itself included links to an ordinance amendment that the council considered in 2021 that included social host liability. But what's before the council and the mayor tonight is a direction to the city attorney's office to draft, to quote, triple the fines under Richmond Municipal Code 11.05, and that does not include a social host component or any other provisions. So that's point one. The second point is, I just want to clarify that under Chapter 11.05, it references our administrative citation section, which is 2.62. And in order to issue administrative citations, the city would need to, right now, if there was a violation of 11.05, it would be a Tier 1 violation. And so those penalties would be for the first violation, $250, for the second, $500, and for the third, $750. I'm doing this by memory, but I think I'm correct. And so I guess the question would be if you want to triple, so one option would be if, you could make it amend 2.62 to make it included in a tier 2 fine, which would be $1,000 for the first violation, $2,500 for the second, and $5,000 for the third. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify kind of what's before the council tonight is just raising the fees, and also kind of what are we tripling? Are we tripling the tier 1? So that was I just wanted to.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So it was brought up to our attention that this estate's fines are already 4 times what we have on the paper. Is that true?
So the state fine under Health and Safety Code 12700 is 1,000, 2,000. I need my glasses here. So I think I need to evaluate it more. I mean, I think it's the fines are tied to the amount of dangerous fireworks as well. So I think it depends on what, what's confiscated and what the user has, or So I think I want to just make sure the council is clear on, so our office can draft something like what you are directing us to draft.
My suggestion is to triple the fines for wildfire areas of what it is for the other areas.
Mayor, we still have speakers. We still have speakers.
Sorry.
Can we go to the online speakers?
And those 3 speakers online are Julie Freestone, Terry Hint, Emily Ross, and we do actually have one additional speaker, MacBook Pro is the device name. Julie, please unmute yourself and you may begin.
I'm Julie Freestone. I've lived in Richmond for more than 3 decades. I'm speaking in support of this item, and I think it's one important approach to illegal fireworks, and I agree that enforcement is also important. So last week, if you remember, I talked to you about the need for an all-hands-on-deck approach to the issue of illegal fireworks. And I don't have to say this again because you just heard this, but this is a serious citywide problem because illegal fireworks are dangerous, annoying, they frighten pets, they trigger anxiety and PTSD, and they do, yes, cause fires. So I am anxious to see what the council does tonight and what the city attorney's office comes up with. And I hope that you are paying serious attention to this issue. I know that your constituents are worried about fireworks. We keep hearing this every time I post on Nextdoor. We get dozens of responses. They want you to do something. And I commend Councilmember Banna for keeping this issue on your agenda, even if you don't want to hear about it. And I also, Councilmember Sue Wilson and Cesar Vice Mayor Cepeda have also responded with some concrete plans for action. We need all of you to weigh in and direct the police department and the fire department and Public Works to work with our new Stop Illegal Fireworks group and other groups in Richmond that are concerned about this problem. We do have window signs available now on our website, sifrichmondca.org, that people can print so that they can help with the community education process. So we only have 2 months to go to get our plans in place and work all together to stop illegal fireworks. So I'm asking you tonight, please step up and do something. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Terry Hint. Please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Terry Hinty, Richmond resident. I'm calling in support of Councilmember Banna's item. I'd like to see the council, at long last, take the issue of illegal fireworks seriously. This item is a necessary first step in that direction, and it's a baby step. You can do it. Please take that step. I yield my time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Emily Ross. Emily, please unmute yourself and you may begin.
Good evening, council and community. Emily Ross, Richmond resident. I first, Thank you, Councilmember Bonner. I think wildfire prevention is super important, and I know that's where you're coming from with this. I had a number of concerns, but they've sort of been addressed. I think it was maybe I was having a hard time navigating the agenda documents. So I'm glad the host liability issue got clarified. It did list the previous council action as occurring in September 2011, but I know there's been more recent discussions, and I didn't really see those reflected here. One thing I'm curious about, it makes sense to focus on the high fire risk areas and sort of what definition is being used there. There's no like map included, but I think if I'm looking at CAL FIRE stuff correctly, it is pretty small areas in Richmond, but would be, curious about how that's implemented so that this like increased penalization is focused on those areas, and that more importantly, like how are the education and outreach efforts taking place? Because I think while we can agree that the fire prevention is important, I don't actually see how this item achieves that. But yeah, thank you all for your effort.
Thank you. And the last speaker with the device MacBook Pro, please unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Ardo Rintila. I'm calling from the RNCC and the Fairmead Hilltop Neighborhood Council. I've been in Richmond since the 60s, and our biggest concern with the 4th of July and other holidays is the gunfire. We have people on our street and surrounding areas with semi-automatic and fully automatic weapons, and I'd like to see that if we can incorporate this into this issue, because the gunfire is what's really scary to us, and it needs to be addressed on 4th of July and other holidays as well. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are no more speakers for this item.
Public comments closed. Vice Mayor Cepeda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who to address this to, but maybe to our city attorney here. Is there somewhere in there that specifies two things? One, between, and I Googled this here, so trying to go with what the definition is, dangerous fireworks and safe and sane fireworks. Are we differentiating between the two? In the current ordinance or in the new ordinance that we are going to be putting in, and also how will we be issuing those fines and separating it between the dangerous fireworks, which includes large items such as rockets and sparklers bigger than 10 inches, and safe and sane fireworks include small items such as fountains, spinners, and snap caps. So that's how it's differentiated in this website that I'm seeing. So I want to see if we differentiate it and if we're going to differentiate the fines and citations.
Well, we should talk about it because right now there's at the state level, there's a difference between safe and sane fireworks and dangerous fireworks. Our code section 11.05 distinguishes between the two. But I think we were looking for direction about how, if you're focusing in on dangerous fireworks and you want those triple fines to include just the dangerous fireworks categories as opposed to safe and sane. And I can cite some examples for you if I grab my paper here, if you want me to do that. Or I don't know if if you have a want to distinguish between dangerous fireworks and the safe and sane fireworks.
I believe you and our fire chief perhaps need to educate us when you bring the ordinance. But I suggest that we add firearms to fireworks.
Yeah, I was going to add the same thing too. If firearms, people do discharge firearms, and I'm not sure if they're in the same category or if we can be put in somewhere else.
Dangerous fireworks is actually codified in the Health and Safety Code 12505, and I'm glancing at kind of the list right now. And I don't know if Chief Osario, I don't think, it doesn't include...
if I may, don't we already have rules against discharging firearms? I mean, it's...
Well, we also have them for fireworks. So I think we're trying to figure out how to incentivize or.
Yeah. Right. So.
Shall we ask our fire chief to educate us now?
So, yeah. So, I mean, Chief Osorio, I think dangerous fireworks does not include the discharge of a firearm.
No, I mean, that obviously is a question better suited for Chief French, but there's already laws about discharging a firearm in the city limits. So I think you want to stick to the fireworks offenses here. And there is existing language about the difference between dangerous fireworks and non-dangerous fireworks. At the end of the day, in the county, fireworks are illegal throughout the county. So, you know, the real problem here is the fireworks being brought in from out of state. You know, these are the things that are causing problems. And although I agree there's education component, we've responded to these high volume of these incidents every single year. These aren't little children lighting off fireworks. These are adults pulling out pallets of large-scale fireworks in the middle of the street and lighting them off, and it's very hard to determine which house is setting off these fireworks. So this is a very complex issue, you know, it's getting at the root cause is getting the fireworks not coming into the city in the first place. I don't know if that hopefully that answers your question.
I'm sorry, so should it be illegal fireworks we are considering or dangerous fireworks?
If you're going to take a firm stance, why distinguish? All fireworks should be illegal in the city of Richmond. And my professional opinion is it should be the same fine and the same rule throughout the entire city. Because the bulk of the complaints and responses we do are not in the high severity zone. They're in the north and east. They're in the south side. They're in North Richmond. The house fires that we're going to by fireworks are in these areas. It is a huge risk in the high severity zone. I'm not saying it isn't a risk, but it's a serious problem in different aspects in different parts of the city, and it should be a blanket rule enforced throughout the city the same way.
Thank you.
Councilmember Robinson? Councilmember Robinson?
Yeah, thank you. I think some of my questions just got answered. But if we were to stick with the high fire zones, I'm wondering if there is an updated map, or could you talk to us about where the high fire zones in Richmond are currently? Because I know that there was an update or something recently, right?
So maps are a hot topic, right? Everybody needs to remember, even though there's new proposed maps right now that are being reviewed and are open for public comment, the council adopted the current maps in 2009. So if you go to the city's website and you go to the GIS page, when you look at the map, you can filter different layers. You can click on the one that says very high fire severity zone. That current zone, if you pass this ordinance or update it, based on the language of a high severity zone verbiage that Councilmember Bonner put in there, would apply to whatever the current zone that's adopted. So as of right now, that zone is the state zone, which is predominantly in District 4. And through adoption by the last council in 2009, included Point Richmond and actually parts of North Richmond. Now, once this body adopts the new maps, this ordinance would apply to that new zone that's adopted. And because of what's probably going to happen with the new maps, where we're going to update an ordinance to identify some fire zones that are separate from the states and the city, we'd have to adopt separate language to include those areas.
Okay, thank you. And also, just I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to what because my understanding is that, you know, when these major fireworks are going off in our neighborhoods, that when folks arrive, there's often no one there to ticket, you know, or it's unclear of who it was exactly who did it. Is that not right? Is it clear who did it? Will we clear who to ticket?
The most common thing we encounter is for the large scale displays that are done by residents. They're typically crated together or put on a pallet. They're drug out in the middle of a street or an intersection. They're lit off. We arrive, or the police department arrives with us. There may be numerous households out watching the fireworks go off, but nobody is, we have no idea, no way to know which household pulled those out. Or that street is empty because the fireworks went off 5 minutes ago, but by the time we got there, and it's a ghost town because everybody knows that we're coming or the police are coming. So it becomes very difficult unless there's surveillance ahead of time by the police department to know who's actually putting these out.
So in your opinion, do you think that passing this increased penalty would be helpful or effective?
I think it's a tool that needs to be added, but I think it's good to manage expectations that this is an extremely hard ordinance or law to enforce just based on the nature of how people light off the fireworks. But I definitely agree that it could be a deterrent to some of them.
Yeah, great, thank you. And then my other question is, I was trying to understand what you were, City Attorney, you were talking about in terms of the existing tiers of fines. Are you saying that we, excuse me for not knowing this ahead of time, but we already have kind of 2 tiers of fines? One tier is tier 1, which is that lower category, that 250 to 750, and then the second tier already exists, which is 1,000 to 5,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. So Chapter 11.05 specifically says, in addition to criminal action, any person or entity who possesses, sells, gives away, stores, uses, displays for sale, explodes, ignites, or discharges any fireworks in violation of this chapter is subject to administrative citations as set forth in Chapter 2.62. And then 2.62 lays it out between Tier 1 and Tier 2 fines. And so, we could amend 11.05, which is what I think the attempt was made in 2021, to add those fines within 11.05. We could do, that's one option. Or we could, incorporate the violation of 11.05 into a Tier 2 or, Tier 2 within 2.62. I mean, you can do it either way. I just, right now, as drafted, it's tied to the administrative citations code section. Was that clear?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess my question is then, the final question is kind of, it seems like we would need a recommendation from the city attorney's office on what's the best way to go to get the desired effect, which is the tripling of the fine with the greatest clarity. So it's super clear what the penalty is. Like, you're not rabbit hole, like chasing people around.
So for me, I think that the best clarity would have it to administrative fines be in one location, which is 2.62. So that's why I'm questioning the triple, because if you go Tier 2, it would be for a high severity zones, you could have it at 1,000, 2,500, and 5,000. If you triple the original base amount, it would be 250 to, so there'd be a tier in between the Tier 1 and Tier 2, so it'd be 750. I went to law school.
I actually think it would actually be less. The fine would be less
than the Tier 2,
than if you say that it goes to Tier 2.
That's right.
I think we should take the fire chief's advice and make it for all over the city.
If I may, Mayor, if the council would like, Chief French is available online to answer questions. I just want to make sure you're aware. Thank you.
Can we have Chief French's advice on enforcement? Is there any way we can improve?
I just want to finish what I'm doing here.
Right. Are you following? So
I'm totally following it. So I would love to see if we're going to move this item forward, to move it forward under the 2.62, and if we're going to increase fines, we use the existing structures, which are actually higher than what is recommended. I do agree with the high fire zone focus, because I think that's really clear. It's a no-brainer. Like, we shouldn't be shooting off fireworks, anybody ever in high fire zones. That just is common sense, and we need to be clear about that. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Councilmember Wilson?
Right. I feel the need to start by saying that I do think fireworks are a problem in California and they're a problem in Richmond. I also want to say that some of you might already know this, but by training, I am an anthropologist. I have a PhD in sociocultural anthropology, which means I have professional credentials for deciding what is cultural and what is not cultural. Okay, I've gone to school for this. And I would like to say that fireworks are in fact cultural. You can look at the history and the spread and the development of fireworks and see that there's certain parts of the world that they really are a cherished tradition and a part of, you know, sort of celebrations and milestones, and that can be a beautiful thing. Nonetheless, they're not a beautiful thing in Richmond. So I just want to sort of have some nuance here that when somebody says like fireworks are cultural, as if that's a crazy thing to say or an insult, they're not. That's not. It's true, and I understand why people love them and feel nostalgia and connection with them. Nonetheless, for the reasons that have been so eloquently laid out, including, you know, especially the fire risk and also just the nuisance and disturbance that it causes in a city like ours. They don't have a place in Richmond. They're against the law in Richmond. So I do want us to focus as a city on using our limited resources to take steps that I think are really going to help curb the fireworks problem. So a question I have for Councilmember Bana is that when this landed on the agenda, I sent an email to Chief French asking her to tell me the number of fireworks infractions that have been issued in the city recently. And so she gave the statistics for the last 5 years, and I think she CC'd all of us on the response. So you had a chance to take a look at
Yes.
Okay, so you know then, just like I do, that in the last 5 years, the total number of fireworks infractions that have been issued in the city is 10.
But she also added that things are changing now. We
Well,
can do enforcement.
Here's what I'll say, is that we are not in a position to fix our fireworks problem through the issuing of infractions. We have not succeeded at that for all of the reasons that Chief Osario laid out. It is extraordinarily difficult to catch people in the act and issue citations, whether they're $1,000 or $3,000. It's not an effective strategy, in my opinion, for actually addressing this problem. And so one of the things that I would like to suggest is that rather than have the city attorney and the fire chief and the police department put all this focus into tripling fines when we don't have an infrastructure that makes fining a reasonable and effective strategy for curbing it, that we turn to something else Chief Osario and others have said, which is a plan for curbing the influx of fireworks into Richmond. I think that there has been work on a state level and a regional level to do that. I think that work has fizzled out. There's my fireworks joke. But I would like to put our city resources into making Richmond part of a movement. I think one of our speakers said, I have the statistics somewhere, 98%, somewhere between 90 and 98% of illegal fireworks come from China, and they come into California through Mexico and through Nevada. And the easiest one to address, and there has been conversations about this, is pressuring our state government to do a state compact with Nevada to basically make it more difficult to bring those fireworks from the brick and mortar stores in Nevada over the border back into California. And I think focusing our limited attention and staff time and bandwidth on being an advocate for that path will actually pay off in a practical sense of choking off the supply, because our ability to have enough police officers to catch people lighting off fireworks in the street is not, it's by tripling the fines, that's not going to be a reasonable result from that. So that's my take on this.
Councilmember Bana? Yes.
I agree that it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve the problem. I think by passing such an amendment, all we show is that the city has a determination to stand up to illegal fireworks. And as Chief Osorio said, it's just a tool in the toolbox. It's not going to be enough. In addition to that, we do need education and outreach, as public comment by Emily Ross mentioned. And I think we need the city administration, different departments, fire department, police department, and public works work together. And residents have already started a campaign, work with the residents and see what works, bring ideas to the city council. I think that'd be awesome, and actually choking the influx, yes, and the city needs to work with the county on that as well. So I think my suggestion is to have the city administration work, different departments work together with residents and with other stakeholders to bring specific suggestions. And if the fire chief and police chief and residents work together and think this amendment, this ordinance works, bring it to the city council. If the council agrees that we shouldn't just waste resources on something that's not as effective. To me, as I said, it just shows our determination, even though it may not be very effective. But let's have that collaboration to bring tangible results.
Councilmember Brown?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. Also, I just wanted to add that the letter that that Chief French did, or email that she did respond to Councilman Wilson, email was that there were 10 firework citations submitted, but also that there were a lot more that were submitted as well. Just due to the lack of legal staffing, we were unable to sort of like follow through with those citations that were submitted. Now we're in a position to where those citations that went unprosecuted, we're now in a position that we can address them. Again, I believe that this is not going to solve our 4th of July nightmare where we're staying up till, almost the next day listening to all of these explosions. However, it's a necessary step that I think that we're responsible for, prioritizing to the extent of if it's doubling it or if it's tripling it, it's setting a standard that we're not just saying that fireworks are not welcome here. It's saying that fireworks are not welcome here. And if you do this, this is the consequence. And we're standing behind it. And now we're in a position to address those who are cited moving forward. Thank you.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, you may.
I make a motion that city administration, fire department, police department, public works, work with residents, and based on the discussion, I will bring policy suggestions to the city council about effective measures for illegal fireworks, including such ordinance.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because it's different than what's on the agenda.
Instead of having this ordinance at this point, my motion is to have the city administration, including fire department, police department, public works, work together and with the residents who care about the issue. And based on their discussions, I will bring policy suggestions to the city council based on what they recommend, based on police, fire, public works, and residents' specific recommendations after they discuss it together and work it out.
If I may, Mayor? One thing that is an opportunity here is that in terms of if there is a citation issued, the city attorney's office has to be involved in the prosecution. So I just want that to be clear for the good of the order.
So we should have the legal counsel involved as well? Definitely.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Ready? We have a motion and we have a second. Shall we take a roll?
I'm sorry, what was the?
The motion is to have city administration, specifically fire department, police department, public works, and legal counsel work together and with residents who have concerns, and based on their discussions and their conclusions, I will bring policy suggestions or suggestions to the council
May I make?
in terms
Mayor?
of ordinances
Mayor,
and next steps.
May I make one more suggestion? So
Yes, yes, you
because
may.
of the season, right, police and fire and both chiefs are online, could actually, if the council was interested, provide a brief update on the work that they have in progress. Because I do want to make sure that the council knows that they have been working on things. So I don't know, Chief Osario and Chief French, if you would, if the mayor would like to receive a brief update on the work that is in progress. Because, and then also in motions, it's helpful if there's some sort of window of time, like, are we thinking within the next 90 days, and so forth. So
We hope sooner. So if we pass it now, they will start working now. And within a few weeks, I hope to bring some suggestions to the council.
but you're assuming, if I may, Mayor?
Yes.
I think that there's an assumption that staff isn't doing anything, and I'm trying to clarify that
No,
staff.
I'm well aware they're working on it.
Oh, okay, Chief, and Chief French, can you please daylight what the police department has been doing, and then Chief Osario?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lisa French, Chief of Police for the Richmond Police Department. So we have our Captain, John Lopez, who's in charge of our patrol division, and he is putting together meetings. There are meetings scheduled with the fire department to work on this very issue. We're going to be doing a public campaign through our social media as well as other, it'll be in the city manager's newsletter. We have kind of steps in place to address the fireworks going into this new year. So the public campaign, we are now working with the city attorney who is going to be prosecuting the fireworks. So we're just planning out for not just 4th of July, but we also have the same issue for New Year's.
If I could just add, we already had a number of meetings with Captain Lopez. In fact, tonight, we actually scheduled our next meeting for May 15th. Right now, each department, this issue is split up amongst a couple different divisions, and they each have a separate role. For fire department, we don't go out and do the enforcement, but we do handle the collection, the support for the police department. We handle the issues with the state fire marshal, things of that nature. So from the fire department aspect, in preparation for these meetings, what staff's working on, the fire marshal presented it to me tonight, was the plan to pass on to the police officers. Anybody that confiscates, what's the proper procedure, who's the point of contact, what's our storage facility in the city, and then our process afterwards for contacting the state fire marshal's office, along with an inventory of things that are confiscated, fireworks are confiscated. The PIO from the department has been directed to come up with a plan with the police department's PIO. Every year, we've done joint public information, social media posts, trying to discourage fireworks, put them out on all the platforms that each division has to try to reach as many folks as possible. We always try to put the exact same messaging out so it's consistent. The only thing that might change is the logo on the information. So there's a lot of things going on already that were in works, because if we wait for a month to do this, we're not going to make the July 4th deadline. So we had to already start having these conversations a month ago. We here at the council, or the citizens' complaints, those don't fall on deaf ears, which is why we are trying to do a little bit more this year. But there is some concerns, at least from the fire department, that some of the signage, some of the things that the community members want us to put out, they have to get passed through the city attorney's office. You're referencing state law and code and ordinances, and we have to make sure what gets put out there is accurate and correct. So I guess I want to make sure I'm clear on what, if this moves forward with the community aspect to it, involvement, what that looks like, and being realistic about what the deadlines that we need to meet, if we can meet those, if we postpone this to have what's basically an ad hoc committee. It sounds like what you're proposing.
No, I'm not.
No, is it
Okay.
some form of a committee to get feedback, but there's going to be a process with that, correct?
So the idea is, I'm very glad you're doing all this, and the community is proposing signs and also posters on windows of residences and businesses. So it would be signs posted by Public Works informing the public about the fines, about the fact that it's illegal. In addition, there will be some sort of artwork in terms of posters that residents show their opposition to illegal fireworks. And so the motion I bring up is to coordinate all these collaboration. This is not to hinder your work. This is to support your work. And exactly as you suggested, make sure they're aligned together. So we have a citywide campaign against illegal fireworks. You're already doing your share. Make sure that what the residents are proposing is legal. That's why it's just a point of contact to check mark and make sure everybody is on the same page.
I also forgot to mention, we've been meeting with Public Works. They're part of this group because we're trying to go back to when we had lit signage in front of fire stations and major thoroughfares, deterring fireworks, notifying people of the fines. So the three major divisions in the city are have a plan that they're working on for our trying to get the fireworks at least less than what it has been. So,
So my question is, are you willing to work with the residents as well? Or you think
well,
you
I
don't
don't think
need-
that's I'm always willing to work with the community.
That's it.
What I'm
This
asking is that.
This motion is exactly that.
What I'm asking that is, what is the expectation of the meeting, the planning, and the outcome, and is that expected to be rolled out with whatever we're doing July 4th? That's what we need to make sure we're clear on, because that's a very condensed timeline for what we are working on.
So what is your suggestion? You said the pace, you said how you want to work with the residents. The city council just approves that the city administration and residents work together, that's all. You can set the pace, you can set the tone, whatever it is.
If I may, because we are actually leading the way, we have the fire department and Public Works involved, but we already have a three-pronged approach strategy, and I just sent that to the council. I'm sorry, I thought I sent that sooner. But the first part is enforcement, and it talks about the zero tolerance operational strategy that we have, and then we go into education and community engagement. And that's where we could probably have a meeting. I wouldn't want to have a lot of meetings because our time is very short. But part of that education and community engagement is to engage with neighborhood councils, business owners, and community organizations to discourage the sale. So that's where maybe having a meeting, inviting the public to give their input would be helpful. And then the third part is the coordination with the city departments and legal support, which we are already doing.
Thank you. So basically, when the residents reached out to me, I reached out to Chief French, and Chief French informed me that Captain Lopez is already working on it in collaboration with the city of El Cerrito and county and other entities. And Public Works Director also said, we'll be happy to work with the community. But then the city manager said anything requiring more than 1 hour of the city staff requires city council approval. So the question is, do you want to work with the residents and, coordinate the efforts? They have proposals, they have experience, and they're the ones who will do the community outreach, help you with education. It's not about meetings. It could be just emails. You can just send email and verify, this is the sign you want or not. Is it effective or not? You decide how to collaborate with them. Nothing mandatory. It's just to collaborate together, that's all. And I'm really surprised to see the reluctance.
We're always open.
I did not say I was reluctant. I said I'm always willing to work with the community. I just want to make sure I'm clear on the expectation of their input, and if we are expected to implement certain things, if everybody's going to be aware in the time frame. Chief French has the ability in her plan for some community outreach. We are coming into May 1st, and so I think we're just have concern about the timeline, the condensed timeline. I am not saying that I am not willing to work with the community. We are taking these extra efforts this year to try to address the concerns of the community. So I don't think it's accurate to say that I'm reluctant to work with them. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page about what the expectation is.
Mayor?
I'm glad to hear that. So as far as I know, there's no expectations. It's
Mayor?
just collaboration.
Mayor, if I may. So I really appreciate that both of the chiefs' feedback. I think what is also important to underscore for the council is that we have a series of activities that happen in our community in May, June, and July. Right, we have Cinco de Mayo, we have Juneteenth, and then we have the 3rd of July celebration, and then actual 4th of July itself. And so we all are aware that public safety is extremely understaffed. So I do appreciate that they're being proactive and that they're planning, but we are short-staffed in both police and fire right now. And so we do have to be thoughtful about the time that they're spending doing things, and that they are trying to do the best they can to serve the community in a collaborative way.
Understood. Understood. We have Councilmember Wilson.
So yeah, no, I appreciate that everyone's being respectful of each other's time and stuff, but I agree with Councilmember Bana that it's really important to have a meeting about this. And so you have my vote for if you want to call, just call the question on this, and I'm happy, I would like to participate. I'm happy to help organize it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think, I think there's good work going on and in the community and among staff, and I would just like to have one meeting where we all come together and discuss it and encourage each other to make good decisions.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Shall we continue?
We have another speaker wanting to speak. Councilmember Robinson.
Yeah, just wanted to say quickly that I feel like what we're discussing now isn't the item that was on the agenda. The item on the agenda was to consider increasing fines for fireworks used in wildfire areas, which personally I think is a common sense thing to do, considering that we're in a constant state of drought usually, and it's super dangerous to people's houses and life. I feel like the other things that we're discussing tonight are good things to discuss, but maybe not the appropriate thing to be discussing from the dais. And we could have had these conversations offline, and you guys could have worked together to get this done. I would like to return to the item if possible, because I think we're out of order, honestly.
It's related,
and it would be nice to get maybe feedback from the city attorney. Maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but this is not the item.
In the last meeting, Councilmember Wilson.
If I might.
Okay.
It is related, so it is, I think, within the purview of the motion.
Thank you.
So it's just a question as to whether or not, and there is a first and a second on the motion. So if she does not, you can make a substitute motion.
The motion is to have the city administration, including the legal counsel, fire department, police department, public works, to work with residents, and as the result, Councilmember Wilson and I will bring policy suggestions to the council.
All right. Then we will have a roll call.
Councilmember Brown?
I'm still a bit confused as well on the entire motion, deviating from the original recommendation, simply because Chief French explicitly said that they have a three-prong approach, and everything that that the motion was on is already going to be included. So it just seems that we're going to be reinventing the wheel instead of collaborating and engaging what's already existed or what's already existing, like with the things that they're going to do. So,
well, there is a motion and a second, so it's time to vote.
Okay. Yes, go ahead. Busy work.
What's your vote?
I'll vote yes for busy work.
Okay. Councilmember Bana?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilson?
Yes.
Councilmember Robinson?
Yes, and I want to acknowledge and thank the chiefs for their work that was already in motion on this. Thank you.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes, and I want to acknowledge the work that the entire staff, not just the fire department, but police department, the legal department, the city manager's office, who is doing work and has been coordinating this work all along. And now we will have a couple of council members joining in to bring forth more information.
So
yes.
the motion passes with Vice Mayor Zepeda absent, even though he made the second. And that's it.
All right. Well, with that, it is time to adjourn. So we're done.
Every day.